Now this tank has no ammonia and a tiny little bit of nitrite. So what I've got here in this particular filter that I've come across, we've got some sponge. So if we can regularly clean that sponge in water from the fish tank, not water from the tap, that would be good. Then we've got a bit of filter wool. If we can throw that away and replace it whenever it looks dirty. And then to consider using some poly filter, because poly filter is amazing. And then we've got some matrix here. Matrix is like an old school biomedia, and there is actually a marine pure block here. So that stuff there is about as good as it gets, and then the pump goes back up again. And I'm assuming there's a heater in there by the looks of that other... Yep, there's a heater there as well. Now an oxygen test must be done at the source. So JBL make good little oxygen tests. So this is a good oxygen reading, but you've got to actually take the sample out of the tank. Make sure there's no air in the actual tube, and you can't bring it down to the shop and get the test done. The test has to be done at the source in order to give an accurate reading. And this oxygen level is very good, as I would expect, as the surface agitation is very good, and there's an oxygen, an air stone, and there's not a lot of fish. So I tested the oxygen level, it's very good. There's no ammonia. I thought there was nitrite, but it's just a dirty test tube. There's not really any nitrite. There's a tiny little bit of nitrate, and the pH is nice and high. Checked the KH of this aquarium, and it's 3, which is on the low side. I really want to add some buffer to raise the KH. I'd much rather it be 8. Not the end of the world, but I'd rather it be 8. And the GH was near 0. So we do have some of this, but it's not in the tank. So we're going to do a water change now and add some GH. The other thing about a water change is that it's all good to test the water and to go off the results. But one of the most important things about a water change is what's called accumulants. And accumulants are basically all the things that we don't really test, don't really understand, but things accumulate in the aquarium. Could be pheromones, could be phenols, could be all other things which we lump into a basket that we call accumulants. So regular water changes is going to help to get rid of accumulants. It'll defuse them down. And also good quality filter medias like polyfilter are a wonderful way of adsorbing and absorbing accumulants to keep them under control, because they can do a lot of mystery damage to your system. Okay, so what's happening here is we have a pump down here, and it pumps the water up via this pipe, which shoots the water back into the aquarium. Then we've got a couple of pipes here, which send the water back down into the sump. It then goes through the filter material, past the heater, back into the pump, and goes back up again. So the water level of the fish tank is down here, not up here, because this will always stay high as long as the pump is on. Now if we turn this pump off, what's going to happen is the water level here is going to fall and the water level here is going to rise. So it's really important that you know how much it goes up and down, because if you fill it up too much and then you turn it off and it rises, it could rise and come out, and that's never as fun as you think. So therefore it's good to mark it, and in this case there's a nice mark, and just write on. And as long as you don't fill it above on, while it's on, then you shouldn't get yourself in trouble. So with any aquarium, particularly one like this that maybe hasn't been serviced for a while just due to change of owners in the house and so forth, is every now and then doing a bit of a spring clean is a really good idea. What a spring clean is basically a large water change in which the rocks come out, and then that gives us a good chance to gravel vac all of the back. Because what happens over time is all the crap just builds in the back of the reef. Now, as the crap builds in, then it gets very hard for the oxygen to get in amongst all that crap, because you get a lot of biological breakdown down there. And then instead of having good aerobic bacteria, you end up with what's called anoxic bacteria, which can discharge hydrogen sulfide, which if you're unlucky can actually be poisonous. And if you have got hydrogen sulfide in the back of the tank, if that is the case, then over a long period of time you might see negative results as it leaches out as far as the fish are concerned. At this point I have no reason whatsoever to believe that's the case, but a spring clean is just a good idea every now and then. Particularly if you've had the same setup for a long time, is it's good just to give it a rearrange, change the plants, change all the decoration. It makes it a lot more interesting for the fish, and it makes it a lot more interesting for you, and it just gives a good chance just to get all the crap out of the back of the tank. So if you sort of pencil in a spring clean once a year, then... What I'm doing now is using a gravel cleaner. I'm going to stick that into the gravel will spin around and all the dirt will come out. Now, in a perfect world, the gravel cleaner can go to a drain. Now, this is a great situation, so next time I'll bring a longer hose, or it's good to just have a longer hose in order to drain it straight out of the tank, straight down there. And if you're wearing algae in your aquarium, you've got a few options. One is a magnet. Now, these ones are okay, but my choice would be a flipper, because a flipper's got a razor blade on the top and they're just fabulous for getting the algae off. Otherwise, you can just get yourself some catfish, like Plecostomus catfish, bristlenose catfish, and then they'll run around and actually eat the algae and turn it into a commodity. They're fabulous, they look nice, and they do a wonderful job running around and eating your algae. Most of the day they'll usually be asleep, then they'll come out at night time, often come out at feed time, and give your whole tank and rocks a bit of a once-over. It's also good to have some diggy fish, because diggy fish tend to keep the sand all nice and dug. In a tank like this, something like Rostratus would be a really good one, but just a nice nice fella that's going to keep the sand nice and dug around and help to keep it nice and clean. So it's good to have some fish that are actually going to help out in the environment. And then having a couple of non-cichlids is cool too, just to give a bit of variety. Silver dollars are nice, silver sharks are nice, mono angels, scats, archer fish would look good on the top here. And also good to be aware of where the fish are swimming. So having something like tinfoil barbs that will use the middle of the tank would be nice, and just offer a little bit of diversity to the tank. Now I just found myself some KH powder, and we're just going to add a bit of this into the tank because our KH is a little bit on the low side. So I'm just going to tip a little bit in. If in doubt, it's much better to just measure it. Been doing it for a long time, so it's like grandma cooking a cake. So we're just going to put that in, and then in the next week or so we want to just measure it and add more if we need to, because what we don't want to do is just bam it up. We want to do a series of slow increases. So we've done a big gravel clean of the sand. It actually wasn't that bad, mainly because we think the fish have been underfed while the move was occurring. Now the next thing we're going to do is raise the GH level. So what I'm going to do is tip a bit of this in, a bit of Bob's your uncle, mum and grandma making a cake type thing. It's going to tip a bit of that in. That's going to increase the salt and the GH for the fish, which is a very good thing. The next thing I'm going to do is add plenty of water ager. So whenever you use this stuff, you want to give it a real good shake, and then you want to overdose it. This particular water ager, you cannot overdose it. So you look at the instructions, you go, oh yeah, Bob's your uncle, chuck a little bit extra in, make sure it makes the water a little bit cloudy, and then it will clear crystal clear, and then we will be all happy. At the moment, the KH level is a tad on the low side. So next time we come, we probably want to just put a little bit of carbonate in the water, which isn't really all that important. And if we can just do a water change like this once a month, then we'll have it all under control.